Hi guys, and welcome back to the Mind Space. It's been a little while. Unfortunately, I was unwell for a good total of 3 weeks, and my voice went out, and the live stream pretty much killed my voice after that for a little while. And yeah, what I wanted to do today is actually cover two topics. We did have that tournament that I commentated over with Tales of End, and we have the statistics from that. Unfortunately, I no longer have the deck lists as we don't have an official collection of this yet, and the deck lists that were submitted that we could check were live and have been edited since or otherwise deleted. The other topic I wanted to cover today is we gotta talk, guys. We gotta talk about it. It's coming up more and more. We gotta talk about the elephant in the room, Robin Hood and Waru lists. We'll go with that second. We'll start with the statistics first, and we'll see where we go from there. So if you didn't check out the live stream, we had a 22-man tournament the other week. For our area, that's pretty good. We are in the top corner of Germany, and Altered is gaining traction more and more up here. The lists were very diverse. We have a very good spread. On screen there will be a bunch of diagrams that I hope to make after the recording. I've got some raw data in front of me instead of the diagrams, but you should be able to see that it was a very good spread across all 6 factions. And to be honest, the surprising fact is that there were 5 Lyra decks, which was the highest number of total decks, 4 Venom Crowbar and 1 Aurak and Kibble. Then closely followed by a tie of Bravos and Muna of 4. Then a 3-way split between Ordis, Axiom, and Izmir. Naturally, the Ordis decks were only Waru and Mek. There were no other heroes played. The Izmir was only Afanas and Senka. And for Axiom, there was a Subhash and Marmo. However, the other two were Traced and Rossum, as Traced has been proven to be very effective against Waru and Mek. We'll get to that. I'm saying effective, and I am doing this in quotation marks. Effective as possible. So how did Swiss actually go? Well, if you saw the live stream, we did have the winner of the tournament on the first round dominate with Waru, and then seemingly get really unlucky, and a Lyra Festival play edged him out. So he took a loss early in the day that he ultimately pulled back from, put himself in 4th place with a Waru list of 4 wins to 1 loss, followed by our 3rd place with a Traced and Rossum, with our 2nd place the Lyra Festival deck in question with a Fen and Crowbar, and our undefeated for the day an Afanas and Senka list. So that's a very good top cut split. The other 2 Waru decks were actually quite far down the table. The next Waru list of the 22 was 12th, and then 16th, proving there is something we can do about definitively the strongest deck of the format right now. Muna, for those who are interested, as Muna was the highest, or at least Taija and Naura was the most played deck in the French tournament for the 1024 players of single hero. Then afterwards, Ordis was the most played faction between 2 heroes. So we did have Muna, and it was, of course, 4 times Taija and Naura. There was no other played. 6th place was the first Muna deck. Unfortunately, didn't quite make it. However, the next Taija deck was 8th, and then 14th. And lastly, 21st out of 22. So Muna had a general good performance overall, but with only a top 4, it wasn't quite enough. And what about Bravos? So, Bravos didn't really have a good day at all, I think. No. So I believe, let's see, yeah, 13th. A Bazira deck was 13th. And then 20th, 22nd, and I believe Kojo... Oh no, Kojo was 7th. So we did have Kojo in 7th place, and then it went down to 13th, 20th, and 22nd in our last place for Bravos. What about Izmir. I want to cover Ordis and Axiom last. Izmir was first place, undefeated for the day, Afanas and Senka. And then 10th and 17th. So once again, a very wide, diverse spread. We had the winner of the Swiss, and then mid-table to bottom table. Varying performance as well from Afanas and Senka. Then we have Axiom, as we've pointed out. The third place deck was a Traced and Rossum deck. And from there, we are looking for Subhash was 18th, and the other Traced was 15th. So definitely a worrying performance from Axiom. However, third place with a 4-1 was pretty strong. This was a low-cost, even type Traced and Rossum deck from my memory, and was definitely built to deal with the very damaging effects of Robin Hood by utilizing low costs with Sabotage and getting as much out of the two havens that you would try to get on the board as much as possible. We did have one of those matches on stream. The third place winner versus one of the other Waru decks, where the double haven really paid out. It was a very good game. And we also had the finale as a Waru Mac Traced and Rossum, where it did not pay out so well. However, a unique really did well in that game to cause untold amount of damage. It's a very good watch. Definitely go and check the final out on the live stream at the very least to see how that played out. And then lastly, of course, we have the Ordis, the 3 Warus and Max I've already mentioned. The fourth place was the ultimate winner. He took a round 1 loss to Lyra Festival and then came back into 4th place, just got into the top cut, and then from there was the next Waru in 12th and the next Waru in 16th. So again, an overall very good spread, very good levels of Swiss. Can't see a dominating faction. They are, if we look at the top 8, all factions are in there at least one time. From all 6, we have Afanas at the top, Fen and Crowbar in 2nd, Traced and Rossum in 3rd, Waru in 4th, there's another Fen in 5th. We have Teja, Naura, Kojo from, then that means, yeah, every single faction is in the top 8 at least once. Unfortunately, we were 2 players too short for top 8, I believe. So, unfortunately, that didn't pan out. So, as pointed out, statistically, very even spread, very even top 8. Unfortunately, the top 4 was all we could work with, and the top 4 ended up, unfortunately, again, we'll address the elephant in the room. Waru and Mac did win that overall. There was a very hard fought game, and the finals was played Traced and Rossum versus Waru and Mac. The low cost definitely showed off its ability to hold off against the effects of Robin Hood. Ultimately, it wasn't enough. Experience did win out there. I implore you, as I just mentioned, definitely check out the final. It was a very good game, and I loved commentating it. I do want to give a small shout out to our undefeated in Swiss, the Afanas list. It was very good to see on stream. It performed very well. I did feel bad for the top cut game, where he was, of course, put up against Waru and Mac in his top cut match, as first does play against 4th in the top 4. And unfortunately, he lost that match 2-1. To my recollection, that deck actually had 47 cards in it, which surprised me when I saw the list. I can't say much more than that because I don't have the list on hand anymore. But it was the one deck that caught me off guard as being above the normal number that I'm used to, because as most TCGs do play out, you try to play, of course, the minimum number of cards for optimal draw to get as much of your game plan running as possible. But this one ran 47 or 46. It was definitely an odd number, but it worked out for him, undefeated in Swiss. Shocked everybody at the time. Okay, so on to part 2 of today's video, the elephant in the room. This has been up for discussion a lot. It's definitely one I've had to rack my brains over and think about and pace myself over being overly passionate or saying that an opinion is, because no opinion is wrong, every opinion matters. And we have to talk about Waru and Robin Hood, because it's a theme right now. It is winning things. It was in 2 versions of the deck were in the finals of the French tournament. Waru and Mac won again here. Let's break it down. For those who do not know, if you do not know at this point, fair enough. But what is the Waru and Mac problem? First of all, you have Robin Hood, whose effect, I will pull the card up on screen. Off the top of my head, the most important part about it is the fact that he increases the cost to play cards for your opponent by 1. Now, that is actually way more damaging than one might have think. In particularly for set 1 of Altered, where a lot of the game, in the meta game right now, is not pacey, it's not fast, there's very little additional mana that can be brought in. Tiny Djinn and Mighty Djinn are the 2 off the top of my head that are the main ones that can do this. There's a couple of spells that do that as well. But you're not pacing yourself, you're not going fast. Robin Hood slows you down so much. And imagine a second Robin Hood. That's possible. And then you're paying way more than you need to for a card. Suddenly, your early game cards that are 2 mana, 3 mana are now 3 mana, 4 mana and are off your curve. You're not being able to build up with enough relevance against your opponent, who has no stall whatsoever, no impact, no roadblock. They can still continue at a pace that they should. Now, in a normal game, Robin Hood comes onto the field. He's then put in reserve at the end of turn, and in most cases, probably gets played out again. Now, that's not too bad. That's only 2 turns of hindrance off of 1 card, and you probably have possibilities for removal. There's a chance that the Robin Hood's not there on turn 1. There's options. Where Waru and Mac comes into this, Waru's effect is if a bureaucrat is played, you can basically put the bureaucrat to sleep. And sleep, as we know, at the end of turn, stays on the board. Doesn't go to reserve, but you don't count his stats for advancement in the track. But his abilities are still fine. They are still present, which means we just doubled the effectiveness of Robin Hood. Because now, instead of it being 1 turn reserve, 1 turn discard, it's now 1 turn sleep, still present on the board next turn, and if he's not anchored or slept again, goes to reserve, comes back the following turn, and is put to sleep again. Waru's ability is not limited. He can do this as many times as he wants to any bureaucrat that gets played onto the board. And I think, personally, there was definitely a heavy undervalue or overvalue of how detrimental sleep actually is to you. It's, if you're not planning to count his stats anyway, sleep doesn't matter anymore. If you're putting your opponent that far behind for that many turns, for every single card they play, you can't play a 4 cost constantly and it costs 5, which then sets you up for nonsense. It's too early for such cost detriment. It's far too early. The results are plain to see. Waru and Mac is dominating, but at the same time not. You can see from the beginning of this video and why I started with the stats that the faction spread, the hero spread, is balanced across the format you can see if you check the Equinox news article on the French tournament for the 1024 players, Muna was the most played deck of a single hero, and then combined with Waru and Mac, combined with Sigismar, was the biggest played faction. Other than that, I think Waru and Mac was only 7% of the total player count on his own. It's not dominating, but the people who are playing it are dominating with that deck. So it's not that it's super meta impactful, but it also is at the same time. If you bump into a Waru and Mac deck, your win ratio, if you're not playing something low cost and effective against it, crashes pretty fast. Your opponent really has to brick. And I mean super brick. Or get really unlucky with the Lyra Festival. Sorry, buddy, I know you know I'm referring to you. So, ultimately, there is a problem with this combo. And it's been discussed. I've seen ideas, for example, taking Robin Hood's bureaucratic effect away, which halves his effectiveness time. Or you have to commit other cards to put him to sleep in other ways, which is better. Admittedly, we could also look at limiting Waru himself, pulling Waru down to once or twice per turn, but then you have to look at the equivalent, well, close to equivalent, is the Muna hero that exhausts himself to provide Anchored. His name has completely blaffed away from my head for the moment, but if you set Waru to just once per turn, then the Muna equivalent for Anchored becomes way better. And in comparison, I don't think that's what they wanted to do. They didn't want to make two heroes that look the same. So, Waru and Mac and Robin Hood together are extremely oppressive. Extremely oppressive. And there definitely needs to be a change going forward or something to help counter such economy issues, where honestly a card like this probably should not have been printed in set 1 at all. It's too early, the game's still new, they're even bringing 2 new mechanics in from the next set. We've got this new card type coming in, and they're making us interact further with the reserve based off of 3 spoilers that we have already from the news article. They're going to have us exhaust in the reserve to do things, which is another interaction type. We're getting more, and an economy-based card this early was definitely way too early. But that's my 2 cents. The card definitely needs changing, or something has to change. But on the flip side of the coin, I do not think it is meta dominating at this time. It is just leading the pack. It's not great that it's constantly the leader of the pack, but Afanas went undefeated, and he must have gone through Waru and Mac, don't forget that. It can be beaten, it's just got a very good win rate. Sucks, and some balance is needed, but let's not throw in the towel on this just yet. Everybody loves a challenge. But I think that's going to be it from me today. I've addressed the elephant in the room, discussed the tournament from the other day. The next video should be, I've left it too long, should be a deck building video, I promise. We will take a look at most likely the Fen and Crowbar lists that have been going around that seems to be rather popular, and we'll see why that's the case. This has been the Mind Space as usual. I'll see you guys next time, and hopefully my voice will be just a tad better. Bye-bye.